Good to speak to you finally on the show. Very glad that you could make it, and looking forward to hearing all about Wales. And I think the first thing that I would like just to ask you is to explain your name, the United in Britain, No Cymru. How did that come about, and when did it come about?
Yeah, so the United in Britain is the campaign we set up. It was originally myself and a colleague of mine, and the no exclamation mark Cymru means no to separation. And it's interesting that your opponents tried to twist the. I'm sure you've gone through it where they'll try to say, yeah, but yes, Cymru's more pro Wales and no exclamation mark Cymru. But everything has context, and no Cymru, as we've said at many of the agricultural shows, it means no to separation. And even some Welsh speakers, when they picked up our leaflet, saw it was in Welsh and English, so Welsh Cymraeg, and they said, oh my God, we didn't think you would have it, you people that want to keep the union would have Welsh in your leaflets. So we had numerous conversations, but going back to why we created the non-profit movement, it became crystal clear with the propaganda that came from what we term the separatists, who want to break up one of the most successful democracies in the world. We've never pretended that Britain is perfect. However, we've got to help, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But we've done a lot of good things in the world, despite the claims of certain people that say everything we've done is bad. So
Yeah.
the context was just myself and a colleague, and we said we wanted to set up a counter campaign so that young people or people from all backgrounds could realize that, look, there's someone fighting for their corner, or what I call the silent majority.
Yes, yes, good. Well, I'm glad that you did, because these the Yes Cymru people, if they're anything like the the similar ones in Scotland, then they're certainly very noisy, and they love to exaggerate as well. Do they? Well, I know that they do. They go on marches and things like that. Is the Yes Cymru movement at the moment very strong? Is it well known? Is it very popular in Wales at the moment?
So originally, what I would class it as there wasn't a level playing field in Wales, and Plaid Cymru, the political party, was failing to make big inroads into what they term the non-Welsh speaking heartlands. And there are people in the No Cymru movement that are members that speak Cymraeg. So we've managed to get around that so-called nonsense that they're against the Welsh language. But the thing is, they were very, very noisy. They had no one speaking against them. They were going into sports grounds. And basically, a lot of the stuff they were saying to the youth, young people especially, was Wales only gets crumbs, and Wales is oppressed, despite the fact that public spending is higher in Wales, and quite a bit as well. I mean, I looked during COVID at the ONS figures, and it was substantially more, around about 16%, if my memory serves me right, higher per adult in Wales than the rest of Britain.
Sure.
So yeah, so there are a lot of nonsense out there that needed to be tackled, and I think from what I've heard, they've had some internal battles. Their central committees have resigned several times over allegations of bullying and misconduct. And so we've learned a lot about how they operate.
Yes. Well, I noticed that they've been holding, since 2019, they've been holding 2 or 3 marches every year. And we've been following them as much as we can from up here to see what numbers they claim and what numbers we can verify. And we've got a graphic that we'll just put up. And we don't have all the numbers. We've got only just maybe half of them. Here we go, Welsh marches. Let's get rid of that banner. So they began in Cardiff. We didn't have anything for that. Carnarvon. In Merthyr Tydfil, though, they said they had got 5.3 thousand. I don't know where they got that figure from, but we counted from a video 2,700. And then they were quiet during the period that everything shut down. And then they came back in 2022 in Wrexham claiming 8,000 on a march, but we had a good video of that, and it was 1,668, if you want the precise total that we counted. So again, they're exaggerating by 4 times. We don't have anything until 2025 when they and the police said up to 7,000, but there wasn't even 1,000 on it, and it took 9 minutes to pass. And we counted 923. So that was another serious exaggeration, and that was in Barry. And then they had another one in Rill, and they said 2,000 people, but we counted 750. So they've learned their lesson to exaggerate anyway.
Well, interesting you mentioned that, because the Cardiff rally, we walked the route the night before, and then the following morning, several of us, or 1 or 2, were embedded on the march, so they could gather information, and we saw them all arrive at Wetherspoons in Cardiff, and I can only tell you what I heard. And one of the directors of Yes Cymru said, I think we're going to get a low turnout because of the train strike.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we then heard that Associated Press gave them, they actually thought about 5,500 were their maximum. And one of the council officials said, no way was there 10,000, when I think it was one of the employees of the council that actually witnessed it, that from their street cleaning division. So we saw the report in Wales Online at the time, and it was written by no other than Will Haywood. And interestingly enough, Wales Online quoted 10,000, and yet I thought, where did they get that figure from? And then I read that Will Haywood had written a book on Welsh independence, and he's been at several of the marches. And UIB, United in Britain, once put in a complaint about Wales Online to the Press Complaints Commission due to what we perceived as biased and inaccurate and therefore false reporting.
Well, quite right. Because they'll just lie. I mean, if the one before that they said 8,000, then they'll always want to just keep building on that. And so with Cardiff, which was the very next one after Wrexham, they would say 10,000. But I mean, if it was a quarter of that, I'd be quite surprised. So we've got the elections coming up on the 7th of May, And how do you, without even telling us who you're voting for, how do you see it playing out? I mean, do you think that Labour are going to lose to Reform? Do you think that Plaid is going to come through on top? I mean, what's your sort of sense of things at the moment?
So, speaking to several of my colleagues, and essentially, they believe, and I've got it from a reliable source from one of the Labour people down in a pub was overheard. He's actually someone quite senior within Labour. He said that he thought Labour were going to lose a substantial number of seats. And one of our members was sat on a different table in that pub and heard the conversation. So he thought that this was this Labour official who believed that Labour would be down to between 8 and 11 seats. From I think they're currently on 30. Conservatives have got, I think, 16. And so they expect to hemorrhage votes, and most of those are switching, to the best of my knowledge, over to either Reform or to Plaid. Many Welsh Labour voters have decided to abandon a lifetime of voting habit, and from their grandfathers, etc., throughout the generations. Some are going to vote for Plaid, but others are going to go to Reform.
Yeah. Well, just bringing up the situation here in 2021, the last election, as you say, Labour had 30, Plaid had 13, Lib Dems coming in there at 1, Conservatives at 16, and UKIP, which had previously 7, just got wiped out there in 2021. So Labour really quite dominant there, but there's a different dynamic going on now because the whole electoral system is changing. Previously there was 60 members of the Senedd, 40 elected. In fact, we've got the old map there. 40 elected under first past the post, and the remaining 20 elected. Here we are. The remaining 20 elected in the regions there, which is the map on the right-hand side, and there's 5 regions. Now that's all changing in a major way. They've gone up to 96 MSPs, members of the Welsh Assembly. So that's from 60 to 96. It's incredible. Yeah. I mean, why are they doing that?
Well, interestingly enough, there's been no public vote on this, and I heard a statement or a comment from the Labour MS for Swansea, Mike Hedges, and even the Conservatives agreed with him. And the statement was, Plaid just want to keep on going, keep devolving everything until there's nothing left to devolve. So Plaid have been the drivers with Welsh Labour. And of course, unfortunately, Welsh Labour have allowed them to dominate when they should have basically, if it'd been me running the Welsh Parliament, I wouldn't have dealt with Plaid Cymru. And even many of their supporters have told us at the shows that they feel betrayed the agricultural side. Some of the constituents in North Wales, where they voted Plaid all their lives because of Cymraeg, because of the Welsh language, and the perception that Plaid were their bread and butter. And now they feel abandoned. Many people don't want the expansion and the huge cost associated with the increase from 60 to 96, with massive cuts in health, education failing, transport infrastructure poor when you compare to the rest of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So Plaid's only resume, the only reason, or the only thing they care about is separation.
Yeah.
And wasted money like they did on the so-called Commission on Constitutional Change. So a lot of wasteful projects, all part of the cooperation agreement with Welsh Labour.
Yeah, slowly chipping away at things. And what's remarkable about this new thing as well, they've gone up to from 60 to 96, but they've also scrapped first past the post entirely. And it's now, Wales is now going to be 16 regions, super regions, each electing 6 members of the Welsh Parliament. And there they are. There's a 16 regions, and it's going to be elected. My understanding is by the D'Hondt method of proportional representation, which is the method that existed and it continues to exist in Scotland for the second ballot, and was previously in Wales for the second ballot. So Welsh people will just simply have one vote, and they'll vote for a regional MSP, and there'll be 6 elected in each region. I presume they'll think that this is somehow going to encourage people to turn out to vote. I mean, how do you see it democratically speaking?
I mean, I personally don't think there's any democratic mandate for either increasing the numbers to the Senedd. I think if there'd been a vote to increase it for every person in Wales, and secondly, the constituencies in Wales, we're bilingual, and there's been several comments from even Welsh speakers who think it's wrong to have only put the constituencies in Welsh Cymraeg. And, so in terms of a democratic mandate, I think there is a zero legitimacy for the change.
Yes. Well, here's what you're referring to there. The official names of these regions are all going to be in Welsh. So that's the 16 there, with most of them down there in the south east of Wales. But if you're not a Welsh speaker, even in Wales, but if you're not a Welsh speaker in the rest of Britain looking in on that, that's extremely excluding. I mean, I would have trouble even pronouncing some of these words. I'm not a Welsh speaker, so I would, I just feel excluded really when people use a language that's not a common language for the rest of the country. I don't know how that's going to go down. That's like the official names that will be mentioned on election night. There's no, as you said, that really should be bilingual. Unless you've got a deliberate agenda to exclude people who don't speak Welsh, and I think that's taken us back to Plaid. I mean, that has to be them doing that, and for some reason, Labour has agreed to it.
I think because Labour had no majority, and when you get somebody like Mike Hedges, the member of the Senedd for I think it's Swansea East, when he mentioned that Plaid want to devolve everything, really all Plaid want is to separate Wales from the rest of Britain. That's their only agenda. And yet they've stated that in the first term, if they became the majority party, they wouldn't campaign for a referendum. Well, I do not believe them. And given the past promise by Adam Price to on an interview that they would not support a Labour-led administration, and yet 8 months later, they did the exact opposite. So how can you place any trust whatsoever in Plaid Cymru?
Yeah. Do you think though that perhaps the problems that Labour is having at the British national level, do you think that's more likely to benefit Plaid, or do you think that'll benefit Reform?
I mean, I've been told in the South Wales valleys, because several of my friends live up in Fronda. I know people up in Gwynedd, and even even people who speak daily through the medium of Welsh, Cymraeg, are going to vote for Reform.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not a member of any political party myself. However, I see that some of the votes from Labour, because they want to punish Labour, they're going to vote Reform and Plaid. But many of them forget that Plaid Cymru stand for open borders,
Mm-hmm.
net zero. In fact, the sad situation in Port Talbot with the steelworks, Plaid jumped on the bandwagon and said they would, it was all the British government's fault, and yet they're the ones that have been pushing net zero. So some of the
Yeah.
voters are not aware of Plaid Cymru's policies, and one or two gave us an interview saying, they were going to vote Plaid, but they didn't want unlimited immigration, and yet that's exactly what Plaid Cymru stand for. And have you ever heard the word? They're the arch experts of, they're like the real chameleons in the political world, and they're great. They're the fantastic chameleons of the political world because Plaid will tell you anything. And they also stated, Plaid, that the nation of sanctuary is not devolved. And that's true. Immigration isn't devolved. But guess who's been pushing the nation sanctuary in Wales? No other than Plaid Cymru. Unlimited, and in fact, on the interview, Thrin Apioreth Jones, the current leader of Plaid Cymru, who took over from Adam Price after all the toxic misogyny allegations, he stated, this is Thrin Apioreth, well, there's no such thing as illegal immigration. And yet,
Oh no, they sound
many of
complete
people,
nutters.
many of the people in some of the constituencies are not aware because they don't all read social media. They're
Oh,
not aware.
yeah. It's completely the same in Scotland as well. Huge numbers of people who maybe can't be expected to keep up with daily politics, but don't really understand the basics of what their political parties believe. And in Scotland, we've got the same thing. A lot of people who maybe don't want mass immigration to vote SNP, not even realizing that John Swinney wants more immigrants to come into Scotland, not less, literally more, and he campaigns for that. And so I can imagine in Wales as well, it's just the absolute same ridiculous story. And we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But I think Labour they are gonna lose votes. But who is the beneficiary of that? We'll see. Hopefully, it's not going to be the separatists. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Now, look, you've got an X account, which is quite busy. It's x.com/UIB campaign.
That's right. Yeah. United in
And
Britain
that stands for
campaign.
United in Britain campaign. And you've also got a website, which is nocymru.co.uk, and people can see your work there. One or two comments coming in. Stephen Bailey here says, Neil Kinnock has admitted that Labour's legislative devolutionary settlement was a mistake, as it's just enabled the rise to power of separatism. I'm sure you would agree with that. And fiscal transfers to Wales are vital to help Wales fill the the gap between income and outgoings, and that's right. And it's no harm to Wales, but it's like Scotland is a big area, with the population just in certain parts of it, and it does take a lot of money to keep the whole thing connected through roads and other means of communication and so on. So there's no shame in getting those fiscal transfers when you need it, and that's the point, as we always say, of the union, is that the richer parts or the more prosperous parts can help out the others with tax transfers and grants and stuff like that. That's the point of the union, is to share. We've always been strong about that, not to hoard your wealth and say you're not getting it because you're 50 miles west of me or 50 miles south of me. I'm going to keep the wealth to myself. No, I mean, the point of the union has always been sharing. And long may that continue. So thank you very much, Jason. We must get you back on perhaps after the election, when the dust has settled and we can get your thoughts on where the ground is lying for heading onwards.
Pleasure, Alistair. Yeah, thank you very, very much for the invite.